Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Building Smarter, Automation, Data, and Dashboards for the Construction Industry. Today's webinar will be given by three of our principals here at Ray, John Curtin, Andrew James, and Chris Holmes. John Curtin will kick things off. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Becky, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Curtin, and I'm part of the construction and real estate team here at Ray. I'm also an audit partner, and what that gives me the opportunity to do is see how a lot of great companies operate in this industry. And one thing that really fascinates me about this industry is the spectrum of sophistication between operators in it. There's a lot of companies that operate with a more intuitive approach, and it works for them. And other companies that have fully embraced data-driven decision-making. They've made investments in people, technology, and processes to make that happen. And what I can tell you is that those companies have seen nice returns on those investments. What we're going to talk about today is, as far as sophistication in 2025, really falls in the middle of that spectrum. And the good thing about that is that means that the results and the ROI is proven. So next, I'm going to talk about what we're going to talk about today, our agenda. So I'm going to kick it off talking about some common industry KPIs and benchmarking. Then I'm going to turn it over to Andrew James from our data analytics team, who's going to talk about how to get the most value out of your data with technology like Power BI, as well as some data management best practices. And then from there, we're going to turn it over to Chris Holmes from our data analytics team, who's going to talk about how to save the most precious resource of all, which is time through robotic process automation. So leading off here, what is a KPI? Yes, I did go to the dictionary on this and broke it down into its three components: key performance indicator. And when I put these three definitions together, what I come up with, what is a KPI to me? It is a gauge of extremely important execution, which we show here on the next slide. So that's what a KPI is. How would you go about selecting the right KPIs for your business? Well, it's really important to begin with aligning those KPIs with your business objectives. So you really have to come up with those first. If you have a strategic plan, that might be a good place to look. Otherwise, what I would recommend is to sit down with your critical team members, think about those business objectives, and with their help, understand what metrics really tell us if we're achieving our objectives. It's important to make sure they're measurable and actionable, but not everything that's measurable is a KPI. So you will need to prioritize. And what I'd recommend is just starting with a handful to begin with, knowing that we can come back to review and refine those as we go along. Next, I'm going to talk about some common KPIs for the industry and give you some examples to consider. I've broken them into four categories here: safety, customer satisfaction and business development, working capital and liquidity, and then performance, project management, and WIP. So we'll start off with safety first, of course. And this is a good opportunity to talk about leading versus lagging indicators. In the context of safety, a lagging indicator that's easy to measure would be something like days since last accident. But something more meaningful might be a leading indicator that's tracking the company's compliance with its safety program, perhaps job site hazards identified over a measurement period. The next category I have, customer satisfaction and business development. This is where things will start to depend on the type of work that you do. So if you're a contractor that works on a lot of longer duration contracts, backlog gross profit is key. If we look at our backlog gross profit and then compare that to our general and administrative costs over that same period of time it'll take us to work through the backlog, well, then what we're left with is a really good leading indicator of financial performance over that time. And that's something that others like sureties will look at as well. On the flip side, if you work on a lot of shorter duration, high volume contracts like a residential roofer, a good KPI for customer satisfaction and business development might be something more like Google reviews, or perhaps other surveys like a Net Promoter Score, because that's what drives the referrals that leads to future business. Moving on to working capital and liquidity, the current ratio is one that I really like here. It's easy to measure and provides a good leading indicator to financial performance and financial health. What I might do with that is set a threshold, maybe 1.5 or 2. And if I see that ratio slip below that, I know it's time to investigate, look into that, understand what's driving that, and consider corrective action if necessary. Also, really important here are cash flow. So we could, as a lagging indicator, measure cash flow on a historical basis, but projected cash flow is really important. So what I like to see is if we can empower our project managers to think about the financial side of their projects. They really understand committed costs over the project life cycle. And they can plot those by week or by month over the life cycle of the project. And then if we could put over that the collections on billings over that same period of time, then we have a project level projection of cash flows. And if we aggregate those all together at the company level, what we have is a very powerful leading indicator of financial performance, a great KPI to keep an eye on. From performance, project management, and WIP, I think almost everybody is doing some version of detailed budget variance analysis, whether that's at the cost code level, by project. Everybody in the industry is doing some version of this. It's essential to operating in the industry. Of course, gross profit margin is critically important. That's what makes the world go round. And then something like revenue per FTE is a KPI that allows for very easy benchmarking to your peers. And then the second bullet here, profit gain fade, that's one that we look at a lot because it tells us how well a contractor can estimate, how accurately they're estimating early on at bid or early on in the life cycle of the project. Next up, project, next slide here. When we're talking project management, if you're working at a larger contractor or you are a larger contractor working on larger, higher dollar, longer duration contracts, you probably have formally trained project managers, and they might be applying the concepts of earned value management. And from there, we get the schedule performance index and the cost performance index. Taken by themselves, they're not too relevant, but if you put them together, it gives you a very good picture at any given time where a project stands. Are we under budget, over budget, ahead of schedule, behind schedule? It gives us a very good look at how we're doing on our projects. So those are some common KPIs. Let's talk about how to get the most out of your KPIs. It's critically important to give context to them through benchmarking, and that can either be to yourself, either to a prior period, a prior month, maybe last year, or to your peers in the industry through industry benchmarking. There's a lot of sources of industry benchmarking. Maybe you're part of a peer group where you get that kind of information shared with your peers. And I'll plug here for the CFMA, which puts out a great annual benchmarking report that breaks it down by the types of contractors, their geography, and the size. It really can tell you what's best in class for common KPI metrics we went over here, and understand how we compare. No matter how you benchmark, the real value in KPIs, if we could go back to the last slide, the real value in KPIs is understanding the cause of change over time, and using that understanding to incentivize behavior that drives success. Of course, then we're going to continue to review and refine those KPIs. And lastly, the foundation of KPIs is the data that they're based on. The data needs to be timely, accurate, and complete. And that leads us to some common implementation challenges. So number one, it's easy to get stuck on deciding what to measure. Again, my recommendation would be to just start with a handful that really align with your business objectives to begin with. Lack of clarity and buy-in. It's extremely important that your team is involved, your key team members are involved early on in deciding what to measure. But it's also important that the rest of the team has a good understanding of why we're measuring what we're measuring, and what they do every day can move the needle on those metrics. And then lastly, back to the foundation of KPIs, the data behind it, it's quality and availability. How often have you thought to yourself or had someone tell you our system just can't do that, or we can't run that report, or that it would just be too time consuming to get the data we need because it's a manual process of pulling multiple reports together? And that leads me to a good transition to Andrew James, who's going to talk about how to leverage technology to solve some of these implementation challenges. Andrew, over to you.
Thanks, John. A little bit of background about myself. My name is Andrew James. I lead our internal and external data analytics teams here at Ray. I was very blessed in my career to spend the first 15 years or so in Fortune 500 companies, mainly on the accounting side. So I was everything from your financial analyst to a controller over a plant to a regional controller, and then spent some time in accounts payable along with financial planning and analysis, leading some of those teams. I was able to get a good background on kind of processes and procedures and just how to really implement things across the board. What that ultimately led me to do is actually start my own company in the data analytics space in 2020. And that's how I actually got partnered with Ray. So I started building out some internal projects for them, also started working with some of their clients. And about the end of 2023, they reached out and said, hey, would you like to actually come on board full time and build this data analytics practice for us? So ever since then, we've been doing exactly kind of what we're going to show today, but meeting with clients and helping them kind of accelerate some of their processes and make things easier overall. Also, just a quick note about me is I am an avid Cincinnati sports fan, so love everything Reds, Bengals. It's been a tough year so far for the Reds as we've dropped these first couple of games. So I hope the season turns around and they get on track, and same thing from a Bengals perspective. Over the years, we've noticed the same recurring theme across organizations, both large and small. The majority of our teams are spending their time pulling data and generating reports. I used to always joke when I worked for Fortune 500 companies that half of my time I was just waiting for a report to run. In 2018, Deloitte actually published a study that stated exactly that. If you think about how much time your team is logging into their ERP system, downloading the report, maybe they're doing some sums or some type of aggregation of the data, and then actually looking at it, they're spending about 48% of their day doing that. Then that only leaves 32% of the time actually interpreting the data, and even worse, only about 18% of that time is actually making decisions or working with the business to drive the business forward. So what we try to do within our team is actually kind of flip that on its head, where most of your time is actually analyzing the data and communicating the results out. So that way you actually have more time to drive the business forward. You have more time to improve your processes or make decisions quickly versus spending all your time just gathering it. What we see from our teams as we've started to do this for our clients is by being able to free up that time by eliminating repetitive tasks. Some of our organizations are actually using that to redeploy people to work on other things in the business, maybe a new growth opportunity or maybe a new startup brand. While some of our companies are actually taking time to either reduce headcount and not actually hire those roles, or just let people kind of naturally leave through attrition and not backfill those roles. So one of the things that we can do is actually help you drive both hard and soft cost savings back to the organization. Once we do get these tools stood up, the good thing about it is we do get to one source of truth within your organization. So when I was kind of at some of the larger companies in the past, I'd walk into a meeting and myself on the finance team would have a different number than the marketing department or the sales department. So what we ended up doing is spending our first 30 or 40 minutes of the meeting actually talking about whose number was correct. So a lot of things didn't get done because we couldn't all get on the same page and agree to what we were actually seeing from a numbers perspective. By implementing these changes, everybody's going to be looking at the same information and being able to make decisions off of that information. We can restrict what people can see. So if you want your CEO to have a different view than maybe a manager within the organization, we can restrict that and do that through security, but we are at least being able to provide the same information, the same numbers across the organization if you choose to do so. The other great thing about this is this reporting can be done anywhere. So anywhere that you have a web browser, if you're on your iPhone, on an iPad, on an Android device, you can actually pull up the dashboards and the data sets that we will create for you. And you can actually see that data, if you're sitting on a beach somewhere, and make decisions on what's going on your business. Our whole goal by doing this is to start to get your organization using more data analytics tools. So we will train them on how to use them. We'll do best practices. If you have people within your organization that want to build their own tools, we will also help them to do that. And what this ultimately does is take your organization from kind of looking at what happened yesterday and kind of seeing, hey, 2 days ago, these were my sales, or 2 days ago, this happened, and starts to allow you to kind of create baselines that helps you more accurately predict what's going to happen in the future. So we kind of start to push you from knowing what's going on now to how do we use that to predict what's going to happen in 6 months, what's going to happen in another year. And that helps you to adapt with the changes in the environment right now to make things move a little quicker and move things more efficiently. So with all that said, what we wanted to actually do today is actually walk you through a real life demo. We do use a product called Microsoft Power BI to do most of our data visualizations for our clients. What Power BI lets us do is it is a Microsoft product, so it kind of is in your whole 365 ecosystem. And it will actually let us connect to your Excel, it'll let us connect to your ERP system, it will let us connect to other data sources that you may have, pull all of that into one centralized location, and then report out on all that data. So with that said, we are pretty much an ERP agnostic. We can connect to any different ERP systems, pull the data from those, and kind of give you the results that you want to see. The demo that I am about to do here today is really based on Foundation. So if we have any clients out there that are on Foundation, we have kind of predefined templates that we've already created that we can walk you through, plus be able to add on anything else that you may want to see. And then from a go-to-market strategy, we are pretty flexible. We have the ability to build out the dashboard for you and actually kind of deploy it in your environment, let you own it, let you maintain it, and it's just a one-time fee. Or we do also offer software as a solution where we can actually maintain it in our own Ray environment. We can do all the licensing for you, all the backups of the information for you, make sure things don't break, and give you pretty much a login and to be able to come in and see all the data. And that one, instead of having kind of that bill out fee, is just a monthly subscription that you can sign up to. With that said, I will jump into the demo and walk you through it. So in front of you, you're seeing Microsoft's Power BI. This version of the dashboard we can actually send out for other people to play with. And it is using all dummy data coming out of a Foundation environment. Usually when we build our dashboards, we kind of build them kind of in the same look and feel, where a lot of times you're going to get your slicers down the left-hand side here. So if you're going to slice by a job number, if you're going to slice by a customer name, certain dates, or maybe who's leading the project, we kind of give you all of those right here at your fingertips to be able to select. Across the top, we will try to do KPI cards. So as you kind of heard John talk about different KPIs and how to leverage them, we can build different KPIs across the top here. And then down in the bottom, we can get more into the nitty-gritty details of the information and give you tables or other designs as need be. The great thing about Power BI is it is like Microsoft PowerPoint and Microsoft Excel kind of merged together. So any of the visualizations, any of the text boxes, anything that you can do in PowerPoint, you can also do in here. But then you also get all of the power of graphs and trends and everything that you might see in Excel as well. Really, from a data perspective, there are no limitations as far as how much data this can house. So in Excel, sometimes if you get a lot of data in it starts to slow down. You really don't see that on the Power BI side of things. We have a couple of clients that have over 100 million rows of data, and everything just populates and kind of turns it out, and you can slice and dice accordingly. What I will show you here is, let's say maybe I want to look at only projects where the contract amount is over $5 million. I can do that fairly quickly here. Everything is now going to automatically filter down so I can see that information. And then if I want to maybe just look at a specific project, I can actually click that project and everything's going to dynamically update for it. So now that I'm looking at project 1374, my contracted amount was $31 million. Right now, we've had a project cost of about $27 million, and Jacob is my project manager. If I want to see a quick breakdown of everything that's making up that project from a cost perspective, I do get that over here in the donut chart off to the right-hand side. And I can see how much my metals, my finishes, plumbing, etc. Like I had previously mentioned, down here at the bottom, we are getting into more of the nitty-gritty details. So you can see the contract amount, my estimated cost, what I've actually built for the contract so far, anything I have remaining to build. And then as we kind of go out here, we start to do some gross profit calculations, percentage complete calculations, and over under billing calculations. If there's anything else that you do want to see as part of these calculations, as long as you're capturing that data somewhere in your Excel file, in your ERP system, wherever it may be, we can pull in those additional fields and do any calculations in there as well. What is also great about this is since we are getting into the nitty-gritty details of what is in the system itself, we can actually show you every single transaction as well. So if I wanted to come in here and just select on a certain customer or a certain project, I could do that. And then I can actually get all of the details of all my web transactions. So if I need to do something with approving time, or I need to just dig into a project to say, hey, where's all my costs going? I can quickly do that and get into every single transaction that I want to. I can sort largest to smallest. I can sort by dates, all of that kind of stuff we can do. If there's anything else in your system as far as financial data that you want to report on, anything as far as like invoice billings or anything like that, since we are pulling all those details as part of these jobs, we can build out additional pages to give you all of that information. So the good thing about this is all this is at your fingertips. So not only do you get that slicing and dicing ability, but all of this data will automatically refresh for you. So no one actually has to go out here and generate reports. So what a lot of our clients do is first thing in the morning, they'll come in here, they'll jump into the report, kind of see maybe what happened the previous day, or see kind of where their sales are for the month or where their financials are for the month. And that's readily available as soon as they get in the morning. One of our clients recently actually just switched over to Power BI, and we built out 3 to 4 projects for them. We will be including a link to a video where they gave a testimonial about the process that we went through with them, how it's been able to help their business, and how they look to maybe use Power BI in the future. So we will include that link, and you can hear a testimonial directly from them. And with that, I will turn it over to Chris Holmes.
Thanks, Andrew. We're going to go ahead and pick up here and get into the RPA content just a little bit. Really appreciate hearing a little bit about KPIs and about the role that dashboards can play in helping us monitor and manage those within our business. But we're going to get a little bit into the RPA content now. So just to introduce myself, my name is Chris Holmes. I'm an analytics and IT professional. I actually started my career in accounting and finance, but just really enjoyed the technical work and have since kind of moved my career more in the direction of analytics and data engineering, as well as automation. I have the privilege of overseeing some of our internal teams here at Ray, as well as working with some of our clients on their data and analytics needs. I do have a background with large Fortune 500 companies, as well as some smaller manufacturers. So I've really seen the gamut of kind of what's out there in terms of people at different spots on the journey. And I am relatively new to Ray, joined in just this year in 2025. Prior to that, I was all manufacturing, but I'm really enjoying the consulting services. I am a resident of Kentucky and really just love hiking and biking around our new home here in the kind of the northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area. All right, so getting into the robotic process automation content proper here. So robotic process automation is really one of those areas where we've seen just leaps and bounds in terms of progress over the past 5 years. I actually oversaw a robotic process automation center of excellence a number of years ago, and just kind of the availability and proliferation of the technology has just increased dramatically over the last few years. You will see Power Automate on this slide. We are going to be focusing on that specifically today. So Power Automate is Microsoft's automation product. So it's kind of in the same suite of tools as Power BI, as well as the rest of your Office tools. So you might see it referenced from time to time if you're in the Microsoft ecosystem. But it's really one of the easiest ways to get into the automation space, just because it is right there. It is part of the ecosystem for people that already have Microsoft or the O365 platform. So we like to start there and kind of introduce people to it from that perspective. The other thing I would say is, robotic process automation. It's definitely something that I think tends to get a lot of scrutiny, gets a little bit of a bad rap just because people tend to associate with automation with, a reduction in labor or a reduction in workforce, when really 9 times out of 10, that's not the case at all. That's not the situation that we see. If anything, I've seen RPA be a way to increase job satisfaction, in a way to enable your most talented and capable resources to focus on the things that are most important to your business, right? You want your talent working on your operations. You want them working on your product. You want them working with your customers. And so, by using RPA to automate some of those, repeatable administrative tasks, it frees up time in your business to focus on other areas, and it frees up your resources from work that candidly really is not enjoyable anyway. So it's a little bit of a different perspective, a little bit of a different way to think about it. Some of the other things that RPA is really just great at, if you think about kind of the, what we mentioned back in the KPI content about how important the quality and integrity of the data is. Well, if you're setting things up through RPA, you tend to see a huge jump in data quality, just because, again, you don't have people, entering those values, doing those repeatable tasks. So human beings are notoriously bad at mundane repeated tasks, just because we tend to lose focus. We tend to transpose numbers, make errors, and so you don't run into those things as much when you are employing RPA. So the other thing I like to mention is that people tend to think, robotic process automation, we're talking about robots. We are not talking about physical robots. So this is not something akin to what you might see in shop floor automation, or robots working on a production line, or anything like that. We are not talking about real physical tangible robots like our friends the Terminator here. We are talking essentially about digital agents. And really the nomenclature here, it kind of comes from the fact that we often set these bots up in our systems in much the way that we would set a user account up. And so, the bots are essentially set up just like a normal human user would be. And so that's kind of a little bit of the background about where that comes from, and why we tend to think about it and talk about it in that way. But really, we're just talking about a digital agent that does the same job that a person would otherwise be doing. All right, so we're going to get into our demonstration here. I'm going to go ahead and start this video and just kind of talk over top of it here. But our use case here is actually one that's really common to all of us in the business world, and that's keying invoices. Notoriously a time-consuming and costly activity that is full of errors. And so we've decided to actually deploy a little prototype here to show you today. So the goal of our prototype here, and again, you'll see it kind of start running here in a minute. But this is a prototype that looks at an inbound email, looks for documents in that email, and then pulls those documents out and proceeds to read out the invoice and line item information from those documents. So a pretty common workflow with invoicing. And then obviously by having RPA do this, we can dramatically increase accuracy as a result. So here's our sample invoice. You can see see that, that's a pretty standard looking invoice. We've got a couple line items on it down there with a quantity, a rate, and an amount. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to go ahead and send an email into our automations inbox with this information on it. And then, the automation will pick up, and essentially it will be a robot doing it from the time that the email is received. So at this point in the video, we're kind of going into the automations territory for it to do this work. So what you're looking at is the Power Automate interface. This happens to be the web interface, but there is also a desktop interface that you can use for more advanced use cases or things that aren't necessarily as web-based. And you can actually kind of see the outline of the steps here as they happen. So you can see that first trigger there is already cleared. That's when a new email arrives. And so essentially that's our bot saying that, hey, I'm going to watch this inbox. I'm going to wait for an email to come in. And then when it does, I'm going to do these steps down below. And in this case, those steps are reading those files, getting the file content, and then extracting information from that file content. And you can actually see there's a little brain icon there where it says extract information from invoices. That is because we are using Microsoft's built-in models in order to do this. So, you think about how far AI and just some of the machine learning spaces have come in the last few years. We're able to leverage that content here as part of Microsoft's ecosystem. So here you can actually see it's giving you a confidence rating in how likely it is that it got the right amounts out of the invoice. So we all know sometimes invoicing is messy. But this model actually gives you a confidence that it got it correct. And then if you want to have a manual review process for maybe things that are low confidence, you can certainly do that. And so some people sometimes feel a little uneasy about that. And what I always like to remind them is that it's still going to be way more accurate than if you had, 8, 9, 10 people sitting here keying invoices. I doubt that they're going to be 90+% accurate all of the time. So here we are kind of looking through the invoice content. And we're going to actually use a SharePoint list here as a kind of a pretend ERP, if you will. Obviously, we could integrate our automation to your core ERP systems. But for today, we're using a SharePoint list, and you can actually see that it has keyed in both of those invoice lines into that SharePoint list. So it's extracted the information with the dates and the quantities and put them into that list, just like it would put them into your ERP if we were working with your actual systems. So kind of neat to see all of that work happen. From here, you can actually automate this even further, and the remainder of our video is going to be kind of focused on that, where you could actually route this invoice for review and approval through, say, email or Microsoft Teams integration, which we have done that for some clients. People tend to really like that just because it is kind of in line with the rest of your workflow. So, if you're managing email, you're on Teams all day, you're going to get those invoice approvals kind of in line right there within the applications that you're already using. So you don't have to, log into another system or go to another environment. It will just route it for you right there. So kind of a really cool way to do it. Obviously, if you've got an ERP, you might want the functionality to work in tandem with that. But again, we like to show this just for demonstration purposes here. So the example we've shown you today is a relatively straightforward example. Obviously, when you're doing this with a real use case, there's a little more that goes into it. We've shown you what we like to call the happy path, and that's kind of the core process where nothing ever goes wrong. When we implement these things for clients, we obviously do a little more work to make sure that there is the error handling and the exceptions process, around some of these workflows. There's also times, candidly, where you don't want a computer to do it all the way. You don't want a robot to manage the process 100%. You might want a human in the loop as an approval approval or a review step. And we can certainly set up those kind of workflows as well, where you've got some intervention in the middle of the process there to review or have a person involved. So a lot of options with this. Again, it's come a really long way in the last few years. So you can do some really cool stuff now. Happy to answer any questions that might be on the line about this, or you can always reach out to us if you would like to talk in more detail about it.